Hey, what is going on, guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at 10 crucial low elo mistakes that are costing you games but you probably don't even know it. So if we just jump right into number one here, this is going to be something that has become a lot more popular here with season 10 and with how the jungle has changed. A lot of junglers now are looking to do a 3 camp clear and ganking at level 3, and this is something that a lot of players just aren't expecting. They're not respecting at the start of season 10 here. Every single jungler in the game has the possibility to gank you at around 2 minutes 30 to 2 minutes 45 seconds into the game, depending on how fast their clear is. So a jungler like Elise, Lee Sin, Kindred, any of these junglers like Warwick who are very good at clearing out single target camps and that want to gank you at level 3, they can do that at 2 minutes 30. So as a laner, you need to be paying attention to that. You need to be aware that it's a possibility you can get ganked as early as 2:30 in the game. So you need to be warding, or you need to be playing safer. So the easiest thing to do is just at around 2 minutes 20 seconds into the game, or if you don't think you're going to be able to get priority in your matchup to ward, then just ward before you even get to lane. But just making sure you do have that ward down before 2:30 is going to be very crucial. Just you should not be dying to early ganks as a laner. You should know where the jungler is going to be pathing in a lot of your games. Just take a look at which lane on the enemy team arrives to lane first. If the top laner arrives to lane first, then the enemy jungler is most likely starting on the bot side of the map, pathing towards top side. If the bot lane ends up showing first, then he's going to be starting on the top side of the map and he's going to be pathing towards bot. So for number 2, a lot of players just throw their leads by not playing around the next objective. You'll see so many different games, like you'll have fights break out on the top side of the map when dragon's spawning in like 20 seconds. Like, why are you fighting on the top side of the map when dragon is the next objective? This is especially important if you get a lead in the early game. Like, if you're ahead, you should not be just fighting randomly on one side of the map. Play towards that next objective, set up that dragon, be at that dragon a minute before it spawns, get vision, force the enemies to come into you. When you're ahead, you should not be allowing the opponent to really ever have a chance at winning a fight. You should be forcing them to come into you, make them face check a bush, and that's how you're gonna get picks, and that's how you're gonna end up extending your lead very easily. You'll see oftentimes like players will just have a lead, but they'll just ARAM mid when like dragon's up or something, or when baron's up and they can control vision. Like, there's no point in you ARAMing mid, or there's no point in you just fighting out in the open when you have the ability to get vision and you have the ability to force the enemies to come into you. You should not be like taking an even fight or taking a fight that has the chance of the opponent being able to win when you're so far ahead in the early to mid game. So number 3, you're going to see this one pretty much every single game in low elo, and that is overextending in lane without the knowledge to do so. If you do not have vision on the map, if you do not know where the enemy jungler is, then chances are a lot of the time he's going to be looking to gank your lane. That's just how it goes. If you don't know where the jungler is and you're shoved out in lane, you're probably going to be the one getting ganked. So you just need to stop doing that. Like, if you don't know where the jungler is, if you don't have vision, just play a little bit safer. You can take a look at your lanes as well. Like, if you're playing bot lane, for example, take a look at mid lane, take a look at top lane. Are those lanes gankable? If those lanes are not gankable for the enemy jungler, chances are he's going to be ganking bot lane. In low elo, most junglers just gank the lane that is shoved up the furthest. Like, they don't really try to counter gank a ton. They don't really try to do anything strategic with their ganks. They just gank the lane that's pushed up the furthest. So if you're the only lane pushing, chances are you're going to be getting ganked. So for number 4, this is probably one of my biggest pet peeves and something that just tilts me so easily if I see this happen in game, and that is when players do not rotate to early skirmishes when they have the ability to do so. I can understand if you're in a more difficult matchup, if you're getting shoved in under tower and you don't have the ability to get priority, I can understand in that situation that you're not able to roam first. But if you're in a very easy early game matchup, if you're able to get pressure in lane, if you're shoving the enemy under tower, then you should be always focused on whether or not you can roam. And if you see your jungler on Scuttle Crab, if you see your jungler looking to make an invade play, then rotate first. Don't let the enemy laner just walk out a lane before you. Don't let them get there first, because if you do that, then it's just, you're basically inting games, for the lack of a better term. Like, if you have the pressure in lane, if you have the ability to roam first, then make sure you do so. So moving on to number 5 now, this is something you'll see a ton in the mid to late game in the lower elos, and it's when players prioritize towers instead of taking a free Baron after you ace the enemy team. If it's like 20 minutes into the game, 25 minutes into the game, and you ace the enemy team, they're still going to be on relatively low death timers, so you don't really have the ability to go for like 1 or 2 towers mid and then backtrack and get Baron. Oftentimes, if you go for that tower mid and then you backtrack and go for Baron as well, you're just gonna end up losing the game off of that, because what's gonna happen is the enemy team's gonna respawn, they're gonna be there to contest that Baron, they're gonna steal Baron, and you've just completely thrown your lead. So oftentimes just take the 99.9% play. Don't go for that like 50% play or 70% play of going for a tower and then backtracking for Baron. Just do the Baron, and then after you get it, you're gonna be able to get those towers that you would have anyways. Alright, so taking a look at number 6 now, it's going to be that players just do not play off cooldowns throughout the entirety of the game. So this goes for the laning phase, this goes for the mid to late game. If you notice the enemy waste a high value ability in the laning phase and they don't have anything to deal damage to you after that ability is down, look to play aggressive and look to trade against them. Once you reach the mid to late game, if they use like a very high value ultimate ability in a team fight and they're not going to be able to team fight very well after that, say for example they waste like a Leona ultimate or they waste an Orianna ultimate, then chances are you're going to be able to win that fight if those high value cooldowns are not available. Also on your team, if you notice that your team just does not have ultimates up yet, like just ping those out for your team. If your team does not have like a Ziggs ult available, or if you don't have a Misfortune ult available for a team fight, then just wait for those cooldowns to come up and then look to fight. In lower elos, you'll often see just players force fights for the sake of fighting. There'll be no reason to even try to force the fight. Cooldowns won't even be available. So if you can really just try to focus on playing off of your team's strengths and only fighting when you do have those high value abilities, it's going to drastically increase your chances of winning those mid to late game team fights. So for number 7, this one more so applies to junglers, but it can also apply to laners as well, and that is oftentimes players just don't make a game plan as to which lane they should be focusing. So when you're in the loading screen and you're playing jungle, you should be looking at which lane you want to be pathing towards first. Which lane, if you get ahead, is going to give you the best chance to win the game. So for example, if you have a Mundo up in the top lane or you got a tank top laner, why would you focus that lane when you have like a Misfortune Leona bot lane? That lane is super snowbally. If you get your bot lane ahead, chances are it's going to be a much greater chance, or there's going to be a much greater chance for you to win the game with your bot lane ahead than your tank top laner. So you really want to weigh out the pros and cons of like ganking each lane, and whichever lane you think is going to give you the best chance to win if they get a couple kills in the early game, that's the lane you should be looking to prioritize. You can also just take a look and see which lanes are the most easily gankable, so which lanes have the most crowd control. If your top laner does have really good gank setups, say they're playing something like a Maokai and you think you're just going to be able to get a couple free kills top, then it's fine for you to look to gank top lane, especially if you're playing like a very snowbally jungler. If you can get a couple kills in the early game by ganking top lane, then that's going to be fine for you. So just take a look at which lanes are easiest to gank, take a look at which lanes are going to snowball the hardest if you get them ahead, and the same thing goes for when you're laning as well. Like if you're playing mid lane, especially for example, take a look at your top lane, take a look at your bot lane, and decide which lane would be best for you to roam towards if you do have the ability to do so. So number 8, oftentimes players just will not accept the fact that they're gonna have to miss a couple CS in the laning phase to let the wave bounce towards them. You'll especially see this down in the bot lane if you're playing up against a very heavy CC bot lane, something like a Leona or a Nautilus. Oftentimes AD carries will just move up a little bit too far, greed for 1 or 2 CS, they'll get engaged on, and they'll just end up dying. So just stop doing this, just let the wave bounce back into you. If there's more minions on the enemy side than there is on your side, the wave is going to be coming towards you, so you don't need to worry about like last hitting minions, or you don't need to worry about moving up too far in lane to get some last hits. Just let the enemy shove into you, let the wave crash into you, so you can CS a lot easier, and so you don't end up getting engaged on and just dying for free. Alright, so number 9 here, oftentimes players just do not play off of what their team's strengths are. So when you're in the game, just take a look at which members of your team are doing well. If you've got a really fed mid laner, but your bot lane isn't doing super well, then as a jungler, for example, you should be looking to more so play around that mid lane. Or as the bot lane, if you notice your mid lane is doing really well, but you're not doing well yourself, then don't try to force plays, just play with your mid laner. Play with the strongest member on your team. If he's not on the map, don't look to fight. You'll see this so often, like players will just force fights when they're not very strong and when they don't have the strongest members of their team there, and they'll just end up throwing the game. So you don't have to be the hero every single game. If you have a teammate that's really fed, then you can just look to play off of them. And then not only should you be playing off of who's strongest on your team, you should also be looking to play off what your team composition is best at. So if you have a ton of AoE damage, if you have a lot of CC, just look to team fight. You should not be trying to like split push. You shouldn't be splitting up from your team at all. If you have a better team fight than the enemy team does, then just simply look to group. If you don't have a very good team fight though, if you have better split push champions, then you can do the opposite. You can look to split push. So depending on the game, you should be changing up how you play, and you should just be always looking to play around what your team is strongest at. And then for number 10, to round it all out here, just stop expecting too much out of your teammates. Stop relying on your teammates to even do the simplest of tasks, because if you go into each game and you're expecting your team to do well, then you're going to be very disappointed a lot of the time. You need to be the carry on your team. You need to be the one getting the kills. You need to be the one making the plays, calling for objectives, making the pings on the map, because if you're not doing this, then oftentimes your teammates just aren't really going to be on the same page as you. They're just going to be on the opposite side of the map when like a dragon is spawning or something. You'll even see this in the higher elos, to where a dragon spawning, your jungler will be like on the top side of the map just farming his jungle, and it's just like you'd expect for your jungler to be around dragon, right? You'd expect for him to be there and be setting it up before it spawns, but oftentimes that just doesn't happen. So you really just got to expect the least out of your teammates, and you have to be in the mindset that you are the carry and you're the only one that's going to be able to carry each and every game. Alright, so that is going to be all for the video, guys. Hopefully you did find this helpful, and hopefully you can take away a bunch of different things from this video and use them to help yourself improve in your future games. With that being said though, guys, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.